Hey guys, welcome to the Titanium Vault. I'm your host, RJ Bates. Today I am sitting down with the man that literally covers all of my assets, every single one of them, Mr. James Jenkins. How you doing, buddy?
What's up? How's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me on the show, RJ. This has been on my wish list for like a year.
I
And
know.
I finally mentioned it to you, and you're like, you've never signed up for a slot. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
simple.
Hey, well, you know what? That's the thing is sometimes I get so focused on real estate investors. I want to
Mhm.
bring them on. I don't sometimes think about the people that are kind of on my team that help us do what we do. And
Yeah.
I mean, dude, you're such a powerful influence and on our lives, and now becoming in the DFW Metroplex and expanding into other markets. I think we helped you a little bit go into some of the markets that
Oh,
you're
you
in
did?
now.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I was actually talking to my team earlier. It was like she was a girl we hired about a month ago. She was like, "Why are we in these random states like North Dakota?" I'm like, "Why are we licensed to practice insurance in North Dakota?" And I'm like, "RJ had a house there and needed insurance."
Right, right. That's
Just
funny,
like
man.
we're
So
licensed
yeah,
in 20 states now, and 16 of those states are because of you.
there you go. So obviously, for you guys that haven't picked up yet, this is the man that does all of our property insurance for us. So, gotta briefly introduce yourself, tell everybody what it is and where you do business.
Sure. Hey guys, James Jenkins. Office is located in McKinney, Texas. It's a suburb on the north side of Dallas. We do business all across Texas, of course, and then basically every state across the southern part of the U.S. except for California, because they just be crazy with their insurance system. We'll get there eventually, but basically the rest of the southern part. And then we also are in, gosh, a bunch of other states. If you're watching this right now and you're wondering, is James licensed in my state? Just shoot me a message.
There you
If
go.
it's worth me getting licensed in your state, then I will. I don't care if I'm there or not. That's how this works. We expand as the clients need us to expand.
Yeah,
So
and so I'll briefly tell you. I'll tell everybody the story of how James and I came to doing business. I was doing all of my insurance was through a nationwide company that, if you're an investor, you've probably heard of them. And the reason why I was using them is because it was easy. I went onto a website, I entered in my information, and then I was covered a couple of days later. And I thought, hey, this is really easy, and I'm just getting insurance. That's what I thought. I'm going to be covered for whatever number I put in, and if something catastrophic happens to my property, that's the check that they're going to cut me. So I have mentioned numerous times about the Propelio event here in DFW. I think it's probably the best real estate investing networking event in the country. And James was there, and he had a great marketing ploy. He had these tissues, like the small little tissues that you can carry in your pocket. And he had his card taped to it, and he handed it to me. And I wasn't even wanting to talk to the guy, to be honest with you. I saw his thing, 10 feet away. I could see his booth. It's about property insurance. I am like awkwardly trying to avoid eye contact as I'm passing him. And he's like, here's, and I'm like, why are you handing me tissues? And he's like, because this is to dry your tears once you realize how much money you've been spending on the insurance that you have. Something, the sales pitch was
yeah.
much better delivered by you.
No, I said
But
here, you're when you find out what you've been missing from not being one of my clients, you're gonna want to cry. So here, have a tissue.
and it worked. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie. I, you
It's the
know,
cheesiest thing I've ever said to a potential client.
Hey, but it
Kid you not.
worked. It worked.
Oh
And
yeah.
James and I had a consultation. And so I want to talk about two different things in today's interview. First, I want to talk about the items that you went over with me on coverage and
Yeah.
how important that is for real estate investors, and the things that most investors don't realize that they're not getting with their insurance. And
Yeah.
then the second part is I'm highly inspired by your systems and the processes that you've built out for your company that they can translate to any entrepreneur out there. So
Yeah.
let's talk about when we actually had that consultation. The things that we went over, kind of first and foremost, were the things that we don't realize in our coverage, whether or not we have an ACV policy or an RCV policy. Can you kind of go into
Yeah.
what those what those two terms mean and how important it is?
Definitely that. And then the two things that follow right behind that, that every investor needs to be really aware of. And you bring up a great point, man. ACV is short for actual cash value. RCV is replacement cost value. And ACV is definitely the lower quality option of the two. Actual cash value takes into account something called depreciation, which we all appreciate that. Or I should probably say appreciate depreciation. That's just kind of weird. But depreciation is the devaluing of an asset over time. So the older a property is, or the older a roof is, for instance, the less you would get in the event of a claim payout. And a lot of builder's risk policies, a lot of master policies where you schedule a bunch of property on one policy form that's typically written with Lloyd's of London or another company that's not the traditional insurance, not your Farmers or State Farm or Allstate or whatever. But a lot of these policies are written on an ACV basis. And you don't realize what that means until you have a claim. Perfect claim example. Let's say you've got a fire. You actually had a fire at a property in St. Louis. Yep. And gosh, I forget what the delta was. You said if this would have been filed a claim under my old policy, I would have been completely hosed.
Yeah.
Then because you had RCV, replacement cost value, it was a lot better. Let me explain what that means. Hypothetical claim situation. You've got a property. Let's say it's covered at ACV and it's worth $100,000. And it's, say, built in 1980, just to keep the thing easy. It burns to the ground. The claims adjuster comes out and says, well, it was written for coverage of $100,000, but the property is 39 years old. So we're going to take recoverable depreciation of 55%. And then on top of that, you're going to have your deductible, which of course you always have. So suddenly your $100,000 property is now getting a claim check for $40,000.
Yep.
All because the policy was written at ACV, actual cash value, instead of RCV. So I'm going to dovetail just a little bit here. The other thing that is really, really common, especially on flip insurance, builder's risk stuff, as well as landlord and tenant occupied properties for sure, but it's really prevalent with flip and builder's risk insurance, is the cause of loss form isn't what it should be. There's 3 different versions of cause of loss form, and they build on each other. The first one is basic. The second is broad, which is kind of uncommon now. You're not going to see broad very often. And the third is special. Each one of them gets better on top of the one from before. A lot of builder's risk policies are written on basic form cause of loss. What you're giving up with basic form is actually some pretty important stuff. You're giving up, in most cases, theft and vandalism. You're giving up water damage of all kinds, not just, something special, but just generic water damage, like my pipe burst. Right. You're also giving up freezing of pipes and falling objects. So if a tree falls on one of your houses and it has basic form cause of loss, no coverage. So it's really amazing to me how many investors that we talk to on a daily and weekly basis have basic form cause of loss and ACV on their policy, and they want to act like, oh, I'm fine. No, you're not, and here's why. Let me show you. And I mean, the general reaction is pretty much, holy crap, I had no idea. Wow. And the reality is most insurance people, kind of like most wholesalers or most, entry level, low quality people in any profession, they don't take the time to educate the client and help the client, in this case, real estate investor, understand what they need, not just, what's on sale. Too many salespeople go, what's the fastest, easiest way I can sell? Well, I'm going to hack and slash coverage and slap a high deductible on there and give them a price that I know they'll like. And the investor goes, oh, that's cheap. I like that price. I want to buy that policy. It's like, hold on a second. Wait and look at what you just signed. So anyways.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this, I talked about earlier the insurance that I used to get. I went on there because it was a website. It was easy to get an account, and then I was getting coverage. But there was a couple of things that they did ask me if it was ACV, if I wanted ACV or RCV, right? Yeah. Now, the only reason why I was choosing RCV is because at the time, our previous business was doing insurance supplements. So we knew what that meant.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of investors out there that choose ACV just because it's cheaper. And they're like, hey, nothing will happen to my house. You know, I'm only going to own this for 6 months while I'm flipping it. So I'll just do
Yeah.
ACV. The other part is there was never a mention of basic or special coverage.
Yeah.
That there wasn't an option for me to get a higher priced special version.
Yeah.
And there was not anybody that ever spoke to me. It was always on a website. And then they just emailed me the proof of insurance.
Yeah.
So there
And
was no
it's
customer
not,
service. I didn't know what I was getting, you know?
it's not an accident that I win against them 100% of the time. I've never lost against them. And when I hear that someone has a portfolio, you know, a schedule of properties that are on that company, I just start going, all right, game on, let's go. Oh, do you want to sign up now or should I give you a quote first?
Right. And you know what? One of the things that you did that stood out to me the most probably was the moment that I was like, okay, James is a different breed than almost every other insurance agent that I've worked with or tried to get coverage from. Was the moment when I was covering our St. Louis portfolio. And we went to, you know, I filled it out and I kind of was just like, hey, on each property, I just want to get $55,000 worth of coverage. And you called me and you said, are you sure you only want to get $55,000? Because could you rebuild those houses for $55,000? And I never really thought about it that way. And then you explained to me that there's a penalty if you don't have enough coverage.
Yeah.
So if the house were to burn down, like it actually happened, it actually did burn down. If I didn't have enough coverage and they wrote up an estimate for say 70,000, but I only had 55,000, I would actually get penalized
Yeah.
for not having enough coverage. So explain that for the listeners a little bit more in detail what that penalty
Sure.
looks like.
And it's called the coinsurance penalty. Coinsurance meaning that you are co-insuring the asset with the insurance company, and coinsurance is a really bad thing. The reason they have the coinsurance is they want to disincentivize. They want to penalize people for intentionally going cheap with their insurance and intentionally undervaluing their insurance policy. What this means, and it's typically 80% is the rule. Some lower quality programs are 90 or even 100%. What that means, that percentage is the value that you should have insured the property to. If you don't reach that value, then the coinsurance penalty kicks in. 80% is pretty typical. So hypothetical, let's say you should be insuring a property for $100,000 for its fair market replacement value, but you only insured it for say $50,000 because you went super cheap. The difference between the amount that you chose to insure it for and the amount that you should have insured it for is what they will do with that penalty. So let's say, for instance, you only insured it for 75% of what you should have insured it for. Then in the event of a claim, the insurance company will apply a 25% penalty to the claims check that they write out and give to you. So not only, here's the really nasty double whammy. Let's say you've got ACV coverage on that policy. Now you're getting hit 3 times. You're getting hit for the deductible, which is unavoidable. Every policy has a deductible, every property policy at least. On top of that, you're getting hit with the ACV, which is depreciation. So your claim check just got cut down by God knows how much. It could be 20, 30, 40% or more, depending on how old the property is and what kind of condition it's in. But then thirdly, you're getting slapped with the coinsurance penalty.
Yep.
So this is the difference in almost always several $1,000s in payout. So, you know, what are you going to save on cutting the coverage amount? Few $100s, maybe $200, $300, $400 on your builder's risk policy or, you know, landlord or whatever it is. What are you potentially risking? Tens of thousands of dollars in potential claim payout. So the cost versus reward of going cheap on your coverage just doesn't exist.
Yeah, and I mean, this was all coming from us as a collective group. We were saying, hey, we bought these properties at such a steep discount. and they're going to be for cash flow, we don't want to cover for what it's worth. We just want to barely cover what we have in it and maybe a little bit additional if something catastrophic were to happen, because our main goal with these properties is cash flow. So we don't want to have this expense of the additional $20,000 or $30,000 in coverage per property. When you multiply that by 65, 70 properties, we didn't want to do that. But then once you explained it to me, and it's like, hey, this actually does make sense. And then when something catastrophic does happen, I'm not going to lie, that was one of those moments where I was like, that made me feel pretty good about working with you. And the fact that I knew we were protected, I wasn't worried about that situation. And imagine, had I not had you explain that to me, how frustrating that would have been had I gotten hit with the coinsurance penalty and not even know what it meant. I mean, and that's what you get with some of these other companies. So those are some of the benefits of working with, an insurance agent like you. I recommend you to everybody. You're going to be one of our new service providers within the Next Level Flipping family. So I'm super excited for that, man. Yeah. And, I appreciate
that, man.
Yeah. And I appreciate everything that you've done for us, man. You've gone out and you've gotten licensed in states that we do. And I don't know I don't know how long it'll take you to get another client in Alaska or anything like that, but you've gone out and done that for us. So,
well, when one of your best clients needs something covered, then you go out and make it happen. Because Lord knows I don't want you having to work with random ABC insurance agency in Timbuktu, Alaska.
And that's what we were doing, man. I mean, I remember when you looked at our policies in Hawaii and you were like, RJ,
what is this crap?
You're like not covered. And we had another catastrophe on one of our houses out there where a tree fell and basically knocked down one of the units. And had we had that coverage that we did have, I mean, we literally would have gotten nothing out of that.
Man, that's a great example of basic versus special on the cause of loss form, because falling objects aren't covered on basic form.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, a tree is a falling object. So if you have basic form cause of loss and a tree falls on your house, no coverage.
Right.
It's terrifying, man.
It is. Crazy. So I want to transition the conversation from insurance. I know insurance is riveting to the audience, and I'm sure
so boring. I'm almost asleep right now, and I do this for a living.
But I know that I'm inspired by you as an entrepreneur and a business owner, seeing the systems and processes that you have been working so diligently on the past 6 to 12 months, just creating your business to function without James Jenkins as the person that does everything. So kind of share that a little bit. And, how did you fall into that? It had to take some kind of inspiration to get there, right? What caused you to go down that path?
Really, what it comes down to, RJ, is this vision that I had when I was a farmer's agent. I'd run of the mill, nothing special, copy and paste, boring insurance guy for almost 4 years. And then in 2016, I got introduced to the real estate investor world. And from there, it just kind of took on a life of its own. And I ended up selling the farmer's agency and going independent. Fully independent. I'm able to do literally whatever I want in any way that I want, with any system, any vendor, any process. I can do anything. It's simultaneously exhilarating and absolutely terrifying, because there are no four walls. Like, there is no box. You're not operating inside of a box. You're operating on a completely blank canvas. And I think for a lot of people, especially real estate investors that maybe are still in corporate world, or they're not used to thinking like an entrepreneur, it can be intimidating to realize, wait a second, I can do anything. What do I want the client experience to be like? For the wholesalers that are watching this, what do you want that seller to experience? What does the journey of your client look like from start to finish? And really, most of what you see in practice now was just a vision, a year ago, of what do I want the client journey to look like? How can I automate and put systems and processes in place so that something happens that fast, when my client or my prospective client needs or wants something. Instead of it being a phone call, we have web forms set up all over our website. We set up a 24/7 client service center where when you need to make a change on a policy, you don't have to call my office and talk to anybody. You fill out a form, and that form makes its way through our system. Are people watching this, or is this just listened to in a podcast form, or is it both?
It's both. So
Okay.
they
Can I
can
do a
see it.
screen share real quick?
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
I'll talk it through so people that are listening to it aren't wanting to cuss me, because that's always frustrating when you're listening to something in iTunes and you're just like, I can't see you. Why are you not telling me what you're doing right now? So anyways, let me go ahead and I'll do a little screen share real quick, and I'll minimize our window. Hold on just a second here. Okay, so I'm going to go to Zapier. And Zapier is like the quarterback of our system. Let me go to the, I'll just do this as an example real quick. Real estate investor quote form intake. And for those of you that are currently my clients, you've done business with us, welcome to the backside of what happens when you clicked on our website. So this is a perfect example. Zapier is this integrator. It is this platform that you pay for. It's like $50 a month for my upgraded special membership, where you get it just everything, unlimited, whatever. It is basically a system integrator that makes all of your systems talk to each other and sends data back and forth between them in real time. So this is a perfect example here. When this happens right here, this is a form on my website. When that happens using Zapier, it automatically does all of these other things. And then right here, someone fills out the form and they click submit or get my quote or whatever. It automatically sends a text message to our VoIP phone system and says, hey, thanks for filling out a quote. And then, whatever else, I forget exactly what it says. It creates an entry in our CRM, our customer relationship manager. It sends an update message to the channel in Slack. We have a very specific channel for each line of business. Most of what we do, almost all of what we do, is serving real estate investors and business owners. We're not a do everything agency anymore. But Slack, if you're not using Slack and you have a team, man, you're really missing out. Slack is 100% free, and it is incredible. I use it literally 100 times every single day. This is our management system where all of our customer data lives permanently. So it creates a new prospect file for whoever just submitted the form. If you're an existing client of ours, it just adds that quote request to your file in our system. And I don't know if you've ever used Trello, RJ.
Trello was our lifeline, man. That's what we created Titanium Investments on for years.
Nice.
So I love Trello.
Yeah, so we've got a dedicated board just for, and it's basically empty right now. It's like almost entirely empty right now, and I'm sorry for whoever that was that I just showed your name on my screen that I didn't have your permission. Please forgive me for that. But the Trello card, that helps us keep track, and we have like automated checklists and whatnot that pre-fill, so my team never misses a beat. Because you probably know this in your operation too, as many moving parts as you have. Sometimes the hard part to remember is what is left to be done. Like, where is the status of this deal? What document do I need to send off? What needs to sign what? Do I have an acknowledgement form? Have I received payment for such and such? All of that impacts the client experience. Mm-hmm. So when you can automate something and have it run literally without me touching anything, all of this happens in real time. It just creates a better experience for the client, which makes them more likely to want to do business with me because I save them time. And of course, I'm saving them money when we have the opportunity to, but I'm much more concerned about the experience. Maya Angelou, the civil rights activist back in the 60s, she said, most people will not remember what you tell them, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And that one phrase, that it's on my quote board, that is one of my central phrases to how we do business, is give that client, either current or prospective, the warm fuzzies. Now, whether for you guys that are listening right now, it's the seller, or it's, if it's not a wholesale, if it's just you're, buying a property. Right. Maybe it's the, someone else you're wanting to do business with, from a private money lender, or you're interviewing a prospective vendor partner or whatever to build out your team. People are always going to remember how you made them feel. So when you're building out these automation systems, these platforms, from scratch, a lot of times, maybe it's a system like Propelio or Podium, or there's 1,000 different systems out there that have a do it for you approach. I kind of like to do it for myself because I get to build it how I want it to be and not have to ask for someone's permission or ask for their help. But that's basically it right there. You see this, and the cool thing about Zapier is you can create as many of these as possible, as many of these as you want. So existing clients, internal forms that we use, service requests, Slack, text, Trello, whatever. All of these, each one of these is a process, and it's fully automated. So what that means is I can focus on being on the Titanium Vault podcast with RJ instead of answering the phone when someone needs a quote for a property. Now let me go check here real quick. I'm in my on my other monitor here in our inbox, and just today we've received 3 inbound quote requests. Yesterday, that was 6 inbound quote requests. That's just from real estate investors. Every single one of those people went through this little thing that you just saw.
Right.
None of them talked to me. And of those 6 or 7 people, hold on just 1 second. 1 second. Okay. How many did we close since yesterday? 3.
I love this. James is currently asking someone in his office how many they've closed so far this week.
We closed 3 since yesterday.
There you go.
So
I love it, man. And
I didn't talk to any of those people.
You know what? You brought up, how you make the customer feel. Go back to the story that I just told about how you got me as a client, right? I didn't remember exactly what you said, but that moment of you made me laugh, and then you kind of got me hooked. And then when you talked to me and you explained the situation on what I had as for coverage and explaining that to me, you actually made me feel like you cared about my company, so much more so than any other insurance agent that I'd ever spoken to. And I think I remember saying that to you, going like, James, like, this is incredible. No other insurance agent has taken 10 minutes out of their day to explain the fact that I'm essentially screwed if something happens. And what's crazy about that is you came in right at the perfect time for our company, because right after that, we did have this past 12 months, 2 catastrophic events that we would have been screwed in. So I can't agree more with that sentiment that you said there about, how it makes a customer feel. They'll remember that, because that's how I felt about doing business with you from the beginning. So
that's awesome, man.
When it comes to building out these systems, you are building out these systems yourself?
Yeah, I'm the weirdo. I'm kind of a nerd for this stuff. I really enjoy the process of building and making it, and really being able to tweak what you've set up as the needs change. Like, man, 6 months ago, this process was a lot different. You improve over time. Now, there's 1,001 different people out there that are doing these sorts of things for you. They'll charge you a consulting fee or whatever. I learned from a couple of those people back at the very beginning of this process. I think I paid $2,000 to some girl who was doing automation workflows, and instead of paying her $2,000 and saying, "Hey, build this for me," I said, "I want to pay you $2,000, and you're going to come to my office for an entire day, and you're going to teach me how to do this stuff for myself." And from there, I've just hack and slash figured it out the rest of the way. But I'd be lying if I said, "Oh yeah, it's perfect, it's beautiful, I never make a mistake." No, not exactly.
Well, let me ask you this: what is your goal moving forward? Where do you want to take your agency, and where do you want to go as an entrepreneur?
Man, I don't mind saying I'm building an empire, one happy client at a time. We have added 2 people to our team, 1 full-time service person and 1 outside producer. We have written almost 600 investment properties this year, and really in the last 8 months. I want to jump that up. I want to write 1,000 investment properties in 2020, just from our office, and then
Right.
from there, I don't know what it looks like. I'm going to scale as big as I can scale without giving up family time and having a life, because I don't want to work. Once we've got it all set up, I don't want to work more than 40 hours a week, period.
No.
The end. My wife is very gracious and understanding. She gives me latitude to build this thing, but there's going to come a time, probably by the end of 2020, certainly by halfway through 2021, where she's going to put her foot down and expect me to be home more. And I don't know. That didn't really answer your question, but I
Well,
love
I think
working
it
with
did though,
investors,
and I
man.
want to say something. I've seen, if you follow James on Facebook, you'll see this. You will go back up to the office. You'll go work on a Saturday or Sunday, and every time that you do that, you give a shout out to your wife for allowing you to do that. And I think that's I have to give you credit for doing that, man, because sometimes as the person that's doing that, we're like, hey, we're the one making the sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
We're the one going to the office to work on a Sunday. But in all reality, it's the significant others, it's the kids that are sitting at home going, where's dad going? And it's sometimes harder for them to understand why we're doing that, and that they're
Man,
probably the core reason why we're doing it.
my son is 2.5, and he's old enough now. He's like, I don't want you to go to your office. And he says it with a stern look on his face. And I'm just like, I know, buddy. I'll be back as soon as I can. And what I want to tell him is, I'm doing this for you.
Right.
Someday I'm going to hand this thing to you.
Right.
You're going to be running this 25 years from now, if the Lord is willing.
Right.
But I mean, I don't want to be the quotes guy, but one of the things that you said it basically, success is a team sport.
Yeah.
These solo people who want to do it all themselves, one, you're going to burn out. And two, if you don't find a way to replace yourself, how are you ever going to sell this thing?
Right.
If you are the only value in your business, then what happens when you stop working 60 hours a week? Do you have a retirement plan? Do you have a succession plan? Do you have some continuation thing that's going to keep generating income after you're not the one who's grinding it out every day? And I don't think most people in my world or in your world have that.
Absolutely. So for everyone that's listening, if they want to get in contact with you, find out how they can do business with you, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
Man, I try to be really easy to find. I don't know. You pick your social media platform of choice. Look me up. You can Google me. James Jenkins and Associates is the name of our business. My phone number, if you want to call the office and talk to Addie or Brecklin, and you can't get to me directly because I've set it up in such a way that I have a gatekeeper now. But our number is 469-678-8001, or you can just hit me up on the social media. I'm pretty easy to find. Not quite as easy to find as RJ.
Hey, so I love your name, James Jenkins and Associates, because when I was 9 years old is when my dad was given the choice. He was vice president of a office furniture company here in Dallas, and he was brought in. There was 3 people that were brought in the office. 2 were much younger than my dad, and they essentially said, one person is getting a promotion, one person is getting laid off, and one person gets to stay in the same position. If anyone here would like to not take the risk and take this package, you can walk away. So my dad, looking around the room of 20-year-olds, 2 20-year-olds, and he's in his approaching, being 40, thought he was the one that was going to be let go. So he took the package. I think it was like $20-something thousand, and that's what he started his first company with. And I remember I was 9 years old, and it was this very traumatic time for the family. It was even more traumatic because after my dad took the package, they essentially told him, you were the one that was going to receive the promotion.
Oh, wow.
And so very difficult for my dad to kind of swallow that pill, but then, realize that, hey, he has to go start his own company. And my mom and my dad, their company still exists today, even though my dad passed away 7 years ago. My mom still runs the company. I think it's we'll do the math there. We're approaching 25 years at this point. And my dad said, RJ, you can name the company. What would you like to name the company? And so I took it very seriously, and I named it RJ Bates and Associates. So that's why I love the name James Jenkins and Associates so much. It reminds me of when I was a kid and had the opportunity to name my parents' company RJ Bates and Associates. So that's this week's episode, guys. Thank you, James, so much for being on the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and leave us a thumbs up. If you're listening on iTunes, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. That gets our show out to more people, and so we can continue making episodes for everybody in the entrepreneurial world. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.